Jonny Brownlee, welcome to our face-to-face podcast. It's really great to have you here and to have the chance to speak to you a little bit more about your life and your career. I guess to kick things off, I was when I was preparing for the interview, I was thinking about you and having known you for a few years and having dealt with quite a lot of professional sports people. You're probably one of the most successful individual sports people I've ever met, and yet I would say you're also probably one of the most grounded sports people I've ever met. And it got me to thinking, like, what to you, when you look at your life and your career, like in one, what is success to you? What does success mean for you?
Well, that's a big question to start off with.
So we start with the hard ones.
What does success mean for me? I think success means for me, achieving the small things every day that then means you achieve something bigger. And I've actually done a lot of thinking about what motivates me and what I see as success. And I really enjoy starting the day knowing I've got some goals ahead to achieve, and then finishing the day and then realizing I've achieved all those goals. I think success for me means I've achieved all those goals, and that doesn't always need to be in sport. The obvious goals are making sure you get the best swim session, the run session, but then also making sure you eat well and have the best kind of balanced life as well, and do things outside of sport as well. And so I think success means for me achieving all those things that I wanted to achieve every single day, and that leads to the ultimate success.
From what you said there, you said you thought about this quite a lot. Does that suggest it's been a journey to get to this point?
Yeah, absolutely massive journey, and I've only really realised over the last a couple of years really that journey, and I've kind of thought about that journey and how you start off as a young athlete that I swam that local swimming club because my mum swam and she thought it was a great thing for us to do. Went to school, did cross-country running because that's what happened at lunchtime at school. My uncle happened to do a triathlon when we were 6 or 7 years old, and then I thought, right, let's do that as well. Seems like a cool sport to do. All the way through to qualifying for Great Britain for the first time at my first World Junior Championships in 2006. I crashed on the first corner. I was carrying my bike back through the crowd, and Alistair crossed finish line and became World Junior Champion. And then all the way through to obviously home Olympic Games and everything that comes around that. We'll come on to this, I'm sure, but London 2012 was massive. We went from unknown athletes to being on the front of the phone book in Yorkshire. I remember seeing it for the first time on a bike ride, and things like that, and then to here we are today. And it has been an incredible journey, and one thing I've not done very well in my career is step back and kind of take it all in.
So that's something you've been trying to do, is it, a little bit more in the last couple of years, maybe sort of since Tokyo, perhaps, since you kind of the famous completed it, mate quote?
Yeah, definitely since Tokyo, because I genuinely thought that at Tokyo that was going to be the end of my Olympic career. So that was a kind of end of a big chapter, or either a book, maybe more than a chapter. So that's what got me really thinking about that a bit more. And it has been an incredible journey. And I know it's a cliche, but if someone said I'd sat here with 3 Olympic medals, World Championships, I would say absolutely no way. And hopefully the journey hasn't finished yet, but it has been an amazing journey.
What has it that's sparked you to think about it a bit more like that? Is it something that's come just completely naturally to you, do you think, with just getting a little bit older and we get a bit more perspective in life as we get older generally? Or has there been something that sparked you to actually want to actively go out and think like this?
I think there's been 2 things. I think the first one is definitely getting older and realising it's not going to last forever. And that's the obvious one. And the second one is probably not having so many good races, because it's after those bad races you really question why are you doing it? Do you enjoy it? Why you started doing it? Are you still successful? Can you be successful? And when it's all going well, and for a vast majority of my career, I was on the podium in most races I did, and in those races you just quickly go on to the next one and on to the next race. So I think it's actually more those bad races that have made me think about my whole career.
It's fascinating you should say that, because when we did a face-to-face interview with Henry Schumann, obviously he's had a terrible couple of years with injury, but he said something very similar. It's almost like that you don't really appreciate the success until you start staring the reality of perhaps not being as successful in the face. Is that kind of like it kind of awakens you, but it also, the flip side of that is it means you can actually appreciate it more than you could when you were just bouncing race to race.
That is absolutely definitely true. Another thing I've not done very well in my career is appreciate the success, and that doesn't need to be go on a night out after a race and really enjoy it that way. That can just occasionally be step back and go, wow, that was pretty amazing. And one of my proudest moments in my career is between the years of May 2010 and May 2014. I was on the podium in every single race I did, and literally it was next race. And I didn't appreciate that much. It was just, all right, here's another race. I should be on the podium again. I'm gonna go to the next one. And I actually didn't appreciate the success. I was more scared of not being on the podium. And then I remember not being on the podium in one race finally and being like, oh, it wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I think in the last few years, to answer your question, it has been the tougher races where it hasn't gone as well as I wanted to. It too has meant that I've really thought about it. And I think as I've got older, the area where you have a good race in is a lot smaller. There's a lot more factors that can affect why you have a bad race. And when I was younger, I could go into a race probably a bit under the weather, not slept as well, maybe a little bit of a niggle, stress at home, and I'll be absolutely fine. Whereas now, I think to do well in a race, everything's got to be perfect.
What do you think when you get on the start line and you now look at all the young whippersnappers then, and for them, like, when you speak to some of the young athletes, racing against you is a dream come true for them. Like, you're an icon of the sport. You're somebody that they grew up watching and aspiring to be. But the other thing is that they're all thinking, wow, like I want to say I beat Jonny Brownlee as well. What's that feeling like? Because do you sense that? Do you get that sense when you're still on the start line that that's kind of how you're looked at as well?
Yes, I do. So, the first bit of that is I've kind of realised in the last couple of years of my career that I'm getting older. Quite a lot of the athletes that I raced against are now coaches, and I'm going down to the start line now of a race in the World Series, and I'm like, oh, the French coach I used to race, and the German coaches I used to race them. So that started to hit me. But yeah, I do realise that the younger guys want to go out there and beat me, and I enjoy that. But if when I'm on the start line of a Super League race, I think the first thing I think is I'm very lucky to be here, and I want to really enjoy this. And the second thing I do think is I absolutely wish I had this in my prime. And again, I reflected on that, and I wish that when I was in my best years of 12, 13, 14, I just wished there was Super League racing. I would have absolutely loved it. Not that I don't love it now. I mean, but it would have been incredible.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's here to stay. And though perhaps you didn't get to appreciate all of it, you've had plenty of it. I mean, you're one of the only athletes, I think there's only 5 of you coming into this, the 5th anniversary of the Championship Series in 2023, that will have raced in all 5 series, which in itself is probably a remarkable testament to how you've been able to balance your career and your life. To be actually fit to get on the start line 5 years in a row is pretty amazing when you look at the number of athletes, even at the very top level, who haven't quite been able to do that. Yeah, well,
again, that's another thing. I've done a lot of reflecting on this that I've realised, and the athletes that are my age and competing on the world stage, all of us are having ups and downs, and it's not as smooth sailing, and maybe I'm actually doing as well as I can do, I'm still here. And it wasn't until someone mentioned it when I was training the other day that if I am to go to Paris, that's 4 Olympic Games. And I know I should have thought about that really, but again, not many athletes go to 4 Olympic Games, and I've been very lucky to go to 3 Olympic Games out of 3 so far, and got fit, got it right. The timing's gone well, and another thing is how fortunate I have been with the timing, especially with London 2012. to have a home Olympics, to go there in unbelievable shape, and in Rio as well, to be there and again in unbelievable shape. And if I could do that again in Paris, then that'd be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, 4 Olympic cycles, to be at the top end of any sport, let alone one that everybody knows is as brutal as triathlon in terms of the amount that you have to give to it day in and day out is truly remarkable. I think one thing I was keen to ask you about a little bit, you kind of touched a little bit on sort of the story of how you got into triathlon, but was more about one of the things everybody associates with you is kind of your Yorkshire roots that you've kind of never left, really. You've been successful enough that you've almost been able to develop stuff around you. Stuff has grown out from like you and Alistair and your success there. But I'm guessing part of the reason that you are as you are, and you are sort of well known for being like just a very humble guy, is probably how you were brought up, how your parents raised you, and the kind of values that they gave to you as a kid. Is that something that you've been able to reflect upon a little bit as well? Because that's one of those other things that we tend to think about just as we start getting a bit older.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. My parents have been crucial in a sporting career for a number of reasons, and I probably talk about it for the next 2 hours. But the grounding of that, well, firstly, we got into sport because of my parents. They wanted us to be active. They wanted us to try everything as well. That involved even music for me, even though I'm the least musical person in the world.
What did you do?
I tried the piano, but my parents are both doctors, and they used to have a first aid kit in the back of the car. And I used to steal the first aid kit and then bandage my fingers and then I'd broken my fingers, because I honestly because I worked in music. You go to the music class and the teacher would have to say, "I'll play your tune that you've learned," and I'm like, "Oh, I can't do it." So I pretended I'd broken my fingers. So I like to think we've only got so much skill in life, and I definitely didn't waste any on music skill. I kept it for sport. My parents allowed us to try everything, and but one thing they always said is, if you do it, you do it properly, and you give it your best. And also we had to kind of earn things, and I've kept this throughout my whole life as well. And when we go on a holiday, and if you wanted to go to the local theme park or have a kind of treat, we had to do so many maths books beforehand. Actually we had to almost earn the right to do that. And I've kind of taken that now, that I almost earn the right to have a good time by training hard, racing hard, and then you kind of you can enjoy yourself. And also we were competing on a world stage from quite young, but for mum and dad, it was all sport. It was a big thing, and obviously he spent a lot of time taking us training all over the country to races, but we had to do education first. Even when Alistair became world junior champion, he went to Cambridge to study medicine for a term. Didn't quite work, so he came back home. But again, my parents were like, you need to go away and study and have something to fall back on. And I think that's been really, really important, because it's not just been all about sport, all about training. There's always been other things in our life. And I think my parents have been really good in that they've always been there in that you race well, you race badly, it doesn't matter. They treat you the same. And I've always been able to go home for Sunday lunch after a long week's training, and it doesn't matter how the training's gone, what shape we're in, I'm still home for Sunday lunch. And it's been great for us staying in the Yorkshire Leeds environment as well. We've had our own training environment there, that I've trained the same groups now as I did when I was 12 years old. The local chain gang that leaves on a Tuesday and a Thursday from outside Leeds, and it doesn't matter whether you got the Olympic Games in a week's time, or you I just turned up, or you finished work. The local cyclists still want to beat you and drop you, and and that's been really, really important. And staying at home and staying in that same environment, because the environment doesn't, it has kind of altered and changed a little bit, but a lot of it's still the same.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, obviously that's sort of almost a reflection, but like when you're a younger athlete and you're just breaking through, I mean, I imagine, is there pressure on you to say you should go and you should move to here or you should move to there because that is the place to be at that moment in time? And when you perhaps said, I don't think that's for me, is there ever a moment there where people are like, oh, this guy is just not committed enough to do the things that it requires?
Well, to answer your first question, yeah, there was pressure. You know, we came through on the British Triathlon performance squads, I know we call them now, but and then it was all set up in Loughborough, and they wanted us to go to Loughborough and train with the squad there. But my brother was actually the first one really saying, no, I don't want to. I've got everything that I need in Leeds and more. And that was a massive decision for him at the time, because there wasn't the kind of same setup in Leeds. You know, we had to create that. And another thing that I've learned in my career is the time, the look of timing and the people you come across. You know, then we were in Leeds and we happened to have two amazing coaches. Jack Maitland was just setting up the triathlon squad with Leeds Beckett University and Leeds University. Malcolm Brown was a run coach, had a really good run squad at Leeds Beckett at that time, and they were based there and they wanted to get behind sport and get behind triathlon and grow it. So we stayed in Leeds, and then through those coaches, we created the environment. You know, went out and found a gym coach who would come and help us. If we needed a nutritionist, or the world's best physio was based there. So there wasn't the setup to kind of naturally walk into as there was in Loughborough, but it was a setup that through the great coaches and the people around, you could create a setup that really, really worked for us. And I actually think that's the best way to go, because then you have the coaches and the team that you choose, not the ones that are being forced on you. And you know, when I started in Leeds with Alistair there was us two and maybe one or two other athletes, and now there are 3 or 4 squads of 20, 30 people in each squad. There's our Brownlee Foundation at the bottom, all the way up to what was the Leeds World Series, and how it's changed is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating, really. It's almost like a completely different approach. It's almost like a tennis player. The tennis player kind of gets their team around them, don't they? And they base themselves where they're going to be based. They get their team and they build out from there. But it's very different to a federation mentality where you go, well, this is our base and this is where we are. I mean, what do you, if a young athlete says to you, do you think I should come to Leeds and train with you? Or do you think I should go to Loughborough and train with this group? Do you say to them, yes, but you could also stay where you are?
Yeah, I would say to them, yes, but you can also stay where you are, but choose an environment that works for you, because every environment is different. You know, Leeds was a bit more of a kind of athlete first mentality, in that you there's a coach there, will set you sessions, and the swim and run the set, but around that you have to look after yourself and learn yourself how much training you can do, make those mistakes, learn from them. Whereas Loughborough, other squads might be a bit more, the coach tells you exactly what to do. So you choose what environment works for you. You know, everyone's different. I'm the kind of person that I'm not like my brother, who likes to be in complete control, but I'm not someone who wants to get told what to do the whole time. I'm in the middle somewhere, where I like to have a bit of wiggle room. I like to do stuff that I enjoy, and go out cycling, do a bit extra because I want to ride up a hill because I find it fun, or there's a beautiful cafe which is an extra hour away, and I'd rather go there than turn around and come back home. So I like that kind of freedom, but I also occasionally like to get told what to do a bit more as well. So find the environment that works for you, and the most important thing is you choose it and you're happy with it. And because another thing that we learned pretty early on is it is 100% your responsibility. You know, your performance is your responsibility, and you're on the start line, it has to be your responsibility. And you should never really blame anyone else. You don't want to start line going, or have I done the right training, or have my coach not taping me down enough for this race. No, it's all up to you. So you have to choose your environment, your team, and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, because you hear plenty of that. If you hang around long enough, don't you? You hang around any athlete, there's always people who are willing to blame somebody else the whole time. So when you were like growing up and in those formative triathlon years particularly, did you, obviously you're the Alistair, you mentioned Alistair obviously several times, your older brother, obviously everybody who watches this will probably know, also incredibly successful, but obviously older. And so therefore is at those formative years is moving through this performance sphere, you know, ahead of you because he's older than you. Was that a challenge to you? Like perhaps even mentally, because you don't want to just be, he's Alistair's younger brother.
I think I got most of it was very, very positive. The only challenge for me was the pressure in a way, but obviously I've experienced a lot more pressure than that in my career. And the other thing was I kind of felt occasionally from parents or friends or whatever, when I achieved it, it wasn't thought of as being a successful analysis because he did it first.
Yeah.
And, you go to World Junior Championships, you win a medal. It was amazing. I did it as like, oh, well, kind of Alistair's done it already, kind of expected. And that was the only negative of that I felt. I got far more positives from that. I'm quite an underconfident person on the whole, and seeing Alistair do things first made me believe I could do it. The obvious example is I went to watch Alistair in Beijing in 2008, and he was leading the race until about 5K on the run, and I was in the stand watching and just thinking, if he can do this, I can do this as well. I thought that Olympians were athletes from Australia, from New Zealand that trained in these faraway places, and we could never do it from Yorkshire. And then seeing my brother do it, who even simply literally ran on the trails around the house, or ate fish and chips occasionally, or a lot of his training, not that point, but lead up to it, was going to was cycling to school, and thinking I can do that as well. And then also it inspires you because if I can be close to him in training sessions, and you think, he nearly won the Olympics 2 weeks ago, and now I'm right behind him in this run session, so I can do that as well. So on the vast majority, it was really, really positive because of that, because I had just someone to follow and someone to copy.
Has it been an interesting dynamic since Alistair has more or less vacated short course racing, and you've obviously stayed in short course racing, and you've kind of committed to obviously through to trying to do the Paris Olympics? Because obviously there's this period now where it's just you, right? Alistair's off doing his thing over here, but you're here, you're still doing this, you're still forging this trail, a fourth Olympics again. It's, these are achievements that you may get that are unique to you, they're different to you, to Alistair. Is that something that's just coincidence, or has that also motivated you a little bit to keep going?
No, I've definitely not keeping on going in a way to kind of make sure I do more, go to more Olympics than Alistair, more Olympic medals. We have joked about it a little bit, post Tokyo, he texted me saying, 3 Olympic medals, amazing, but my 2 goals still count for more, and that sort of thing. But no, I'm doing it because I really enjoy this format, and I still think I've got more to give, and not because I want to go to more Olympics than my brother. It hit me in Paris, actually, test event, how fortunate I was to spend a lot of my Olympic career with Alistair and go to Olympics with him. There's obvious ones who are doing the training together, being on the start line together, and actually I was kind of on the start line in Paris going, this is actually quite a lonely place now. In London, we had an amazing team. We trained together with Richard Varga, with Alistair, with Stu Hayes, and it was very much of a kind of bring it on, we're looking after each other here, we're ready, and that has definitely changed now. In Rio, it was the same with Gordon Benson and Alistair. We literally on the start line next to Alistair, going, see you on the swim sometime, hopefully, and then talking on the bike. And now that's very different. I don't have that anymore, and it has become a lot more lonely. Yeah,
that's interesting. Like how do you handle that? Do you just have to get on with it, or is there like ways and means? Because that's a big dynamic change, right? In like how you approach going to events, traveling to events, how you experience the events yourself.
Yeah, well, obviously you've got your own team members and coaches, but it's never going to be the same as having your own brother that you've done everything together with, and you are part of that team together, really part of that team. So to be honest with you, I think it's something that I'm going to have to deal with and accept. Alistair's not coming back to the short course race anytime soon, so it is going to be like that. And rather than go, I missed that, go, I was really lucky to have that.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. And you said like the kind of trying to get to an extra Olympics or whatever it may be is not motivated by kind of a battle with wanting to have your own separate legacy that's better than Alistair's or anything like that. But after Tokyo, you're basically done and you weren't going to Paris. What is it that sparked that change and that desire to stay and give it like one more cycle?
The honest answer to that is the mixed team relay. So I didn't believe I could deliver the performance that I delivered in Tokyo, and then to cross the finish line and hold a bit of paper which said I had the fastest overall leg and the fastest run made me believe, wow, I can do this again. I can be better than that. My build up to Tokyo wasn't perfect with injury, and obviously it's hard for everyone with all restrictions. But I believe that if I had another chance, I could do it again. And my philosophy for it is pretty simple. I only really want to be in Paris if I can be a genuine contender in the individual race, and also I can be a genuine contender in the mixed team relay. And I still need to prove to myself that I can do that. There's been a few glimpses this time of year, but there's been more downs and up this year so far. But my training's gone really, really well, and hopefully over the next few Super League races and the Grand Final I can show that, because it is pretty simple. I only want to be there if I can genuinely compete for a medal.
If you got selected and you didn't feel you could compete, would you say I'm not going?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I don't think I would be selected without being a genuine medal contender or an asset to the mixed team relay. But no, I wouldn't want to go. No, I only want to be at the start line if I can genuinely be a medal contender in both races. I still think I could deliver a really, really good mixed team relay leg. I still know that. But the individual as well is something I want to be really competitive. I want to go to races to compete now.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, I mean, you've lived success. Your life has been a success-driven life, if you like. It must get to a point where you get, again, I compare it to tennis, because you see the older players, like it's kind of almost blazed a bit of a trail for like older sports people when you've seen what Federer and Nadal have done, what Djokovic is doing, and their kind of insatiable appetite for success. It seems like even beyond, with an incredibly wealthy, incredibly successful, what more could they possibly want? And yet there's some inner hunger in them to still be successful, but there's also a desire to not want to go out and kind of tarnish themselves, I guess. And is that, can you relate to that when you look at people like other sports people, other elite sports people that are competing at that age, and they're kind of making decisions whether to carry on, whether to stop, whether to prioritize certain events and skip others because they've got to the stage where they can kind of pick and choose a bit more? Do you see a bit of yourself in that as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I now only want to do the events that I really want to do, and also it's quite hard. I realise sometimes from the outside you can look in and be like, why is he still doing it? Is he ever going to get back to it to competing? And I know from myself that my training paints a very, very different picture. The last month in San Moritz went really, really well, and I was training well and absolutely flying, and that made me believe that I can be competitive. It's not like I'm training badly and then racing badly and going, what am I still doing it for? I know from what I'm doing that I can get back to somewhere near my best, and that will be good enough. And when you look at all the tennis players, I'm sure it's the same for them. You see them doing all the right things in training, and at the same time, I like to have the philosophy that all the success I have had should be a positive, because I can go to other Olympic Games, other races, and go, I've been here and I won these races, so I'm going to try and enjoy this one and take it all in.
You mentioned that split for the relay in Tokyo, which was obviously an incredible achievement. You've mentioned, in passing, some of your other career highlights. I mean, there are so many. Your biography is ludicrous, obviously. Because we try and condense a biography into about 300 words. For some athletes, that's easy. For others like you, it's almost impossible. So, when you look, if you can pick out a highlight, what is the highlight? And I'm curious as to, is it something obvious that we would just look like, it's London, obviously, or is it actually something that meant more to you that most people probably would just never pick off of a list of results?
Yeah, well, the obvious one is, the obvious ones are the number of podiums between, like I said before, 2010, 2014.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that. London 2012, proud of all the pressure dealing with that and performing and the penalty. But there's actually other races along the way that have meant more to me. So, for example, winning the World Cup in Sardinia in 2021, because that was the lead up to Tokyo, and I didn't think I was going to be competitive, and that gave me a real good chance I can be competitive again. Winning the World Series in Edmonton in 2019, again, after many years of not getting near a top step of podium, to go, I can be competitive at the World Series again, meant again more than my Olympic medals. Even Madrid, the European champs this year, after a couple of bad races, to medal. I know it's a duathlon, that doesn't suit me, but to be back in Madrid and to medal there meant more than a lot of my career, because I guess it's what we were saying before. When you have the downs, the ups feel a lot better and mean a lot more, because you've had those moments where you doubt yourself and you think, can I do it? Am I too old? Am I too slow? And they say, I definitely can still do it. Whereas, London, Rio, London, for example, we were favourites, everything had gone brilliantly. It was about just not messing up, really. In Rio, again, everything had gone really well. We were the favourites, the course suited us. And again, it was about just doing a job. And, Rio felt more like, I'm just pleased we did that. We got the medals, let's get home. So it's those other events that actually mean more.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I guess, like, when it's good to reflect back and then to be able to, like you said, project that forward into your future. One thing that I'm keen to talk to you about, because I know it's something you're very passionate about and you've obviously done a lot of work with, is the Brownlee Foundation as well. Could you talk to us a little bit about kind of why you set that up and how it's evolved and what it means to you to have been able to build something that's going to leave a real legacy?
Yeah, so the Brownlee Foundation is absolutely incredible. I'm so proud of it. So we started it in 2014. Obviously, after London 2012, legacy was a word that was used a lot, and we felt we had to do our bit. So quite simply, we put on kids triathlon, so for primary school children, and they come out their school day as part of their school and do a triathlon for free. And the idea is to get children active and get them enjoying sport and enjoying being active more than anything. And then we put on follow-on sessions. So if a child gets a taste of triathlon, they can do sessions afterwards for hopefully the next months, years, or whatever. It's not necessarily about finding the next triathletes, the next Alex Yee or whatever. It's about getting kids active and getting them to enjoy being active and realise what a positive experience being active can be. And also I like getting them to achieve something they've never achieved before. It's amazing to see some of these children who turn up at a swimming pool, have barely seen a swimming pool, can't cycle or ride a bike. They can walk across a shallow end of the pool. They can use a scooter or a turbo trainer, and then run and then finish a triathlon and going, wow, I never thought I could achieve that. So I absolutely love it. And we've had over 50,000 children have done one for the first time since we started it, and it's growing. So thanks to the supporters, the guys at Phoenix have been amazing supporting it. So hopefully it continues. That's something that I want to grow in the future after I retire, because it really does make a difference. And the stories and the letters we get afterwards is amazing. And we now add extra things onto that. So we give away bikes. At the end of the year, we'll give away 5 bikes to children that are going to use them or learn to ride. And through the foundation, we literally change people's lives. So it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean that's even more of a legacy than your medals will ever be. I guess it's an incredible thing to have done. And to keep doing. And you mentioned there the R word, retirement. I'm guessing this is a question you get asked all the time. After Paris, would you go to long course? Do you want to retire? Is the Brownlee Foundation, and given time to that, something that's on your mind, like when your career, you eventually decide that it's time to stop?
Well, the answer, the easy one to the retirement question is I genuinely don't know. And I think the most important thing, I put everything into Paris and then reassess. I've tried with long distance racing and it hasn't quite gone as well as I'd hoped. But I think more than anything, it's because I've not really focused on properly. My first 70.3, I came out of 4 weeks of Super League racing, which is probably not the best preparation.
Yeah, probably about the opposite.
I maybe let's reassess after Paris and then go. But I'd like to try and give it at least a year to see if I can be competitive. And the Brownlee Foundation is a massive draw, and I can give more time to that. But when I retire properly, I'll give definitely a lot more time to it.
When you obviously have, you've come through, you've experienced a lot. Like we said, the 4 Olympic cycles. How do you assess kind of where the sport is now? It's obviously it had huge growth, huge boom years. There's this fear that maybe it's kind of trailing off a little bit. How do you assess where it is now and kind of what the future of it is?
I've obviously been through a massive generation of triathlon now, and there was a boom years, and pretty much I can only talk about from the UK point of view here. But we had the boom years into London 2012, and that was just incredible. That was the years when we went from a lot of people not knowing what a triathlon is to actively following triathlon to actually watching it to doing one. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it feels like the kind of mass participation figures are starting to come down a little bit after that time. I'm hoping that our foundation and work like that really helps with keeping that going, but we won't see that for a few years' time because we're providing 10, 12, 15,000 children that have done a triathlon for the first time and know what a triathlon is, and hopefully that's every year. So hopefully we'll do one and get involved with the sport. I think from the elite point of view, it's in a great time at that moment. The fact that we can race the World Series, we're very fortunate to have Super League racing, which I'll never take for granted because it's unbelievable racing. I really enjoy it. It's good for our profile, and it's just really good fun. And then the long distance racing with the PTO stuff, Ironman, it ain't for elite. There is so much racing to choose from, and it's actually hard now to make sure that you focus on what you want to do and not get distracted by too much racing. Whereas in my early years, my career, I didn't have that. So to summarise, from an elite point of view, I think it's in a really, really healthy position. For the mass participation stuff, maybe not the growth that it was into and after London 2012.
I mean, we are on a Super League podcast and face-to-face interview, so I feel like as you brought up Super League, and we didn't ask you to do that, honest, I should ask you a bit about Super League and what it is about it that's kind of captivated you. I mean, you can race any races you want to race now. Like you earned that right quite a long time ago to pick and choose what you want to do. You don't have to turn up five championship series in a row. You've been at all of them. You've chosen to do that for a reason. Like what are the motivations for doing it? And why do you think it has been good for the sport?
Well, I think Super League came at a great time in my career. I'd done the World Series for many years. I'd travelled to the same places, done the same racing, and the World Series racing is great, but it can become all quite the same. The same kind of format of races, the same cities, the races go the same way tactically. And then Super League came along, and for me, it was just like something completely new and exciting. And I really like pure, honest racing, and Super League is that. The enduro format is brilliant because you have to be a good all-round triathlete. If you can't just swim near the front, sit on the bike and get pulled around and then run fast. You have to be good at all three. And if you make a mistake, you get caught out. The margins are so fine, and it's exciting. I enjoy the team aspect of it. Maybe going back to what we talked about being with Alston and Varga on the start line, I've really enjoyed having that team. And in Super, we have a bit of that now. You train together as a team, you prepare as a team, you race as much as you can as a team, and I really enjoy that. And it's hard, it's good fun, and I really enjoy the fact that I train around home and people say I was watching Super League and it's brilliant, it's fun to watch, and I'm like, it is the best format of triathlon to watch. So I really enjoy the entertainment that it brings.
Yeah, I think that is exactly what it is, isn't it? It's entertainment, it's sport and entertainment, which is kind of an industry in its own. Well, look, Jonny, It's been great having you. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I am interested just to kind of conclude a little bit. We spent a lot of time, and I feel like we've talked a lot about how successful you've been, but you made a comment right in the middle that I wanted to kind of come back to, that you just said that you kind of, as a guy, you feel like you're underconfident. You've had all this success. Do you still feel like that?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I guess the why, I don't know, is just innate in you. I think I'll always be that way. I'll always be that underconfident person. I don't know if it's kind of the way that my brain works, and I'm always thinking, what if this goes wrong? What if this happens? What if? And you're kind of scared of that. I don't know if for me, I'm kind of always been scared of letting people down. I'm always a person who getting told I care about people's emotions too much. So I don't know if a bit of that is in me, that you're always worried about letting others down or not being as good as other people hope that you should be, whether that's coaches, brother, family, whatever. You always got people you don't want to let down. So I don't know if that brings in the confidence, but yeah, I don't think that'll ever change. But in some ways, maybe that's a good thing that keeps me driving forward.
Well, I think it's fair to say, when you look at your medal collection, your achievements, it hasn't exactly been a great hindrance to your career. So, Jonny, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. It's been a real pleasure, and we wish you all the best for your journey to Paris and beyond.
Thank you very much.